welcome to another LK Wilde Meets, and I'm delighted to have Helen Aitchison here today. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I have known Helen for a while through social media, and we were just saying that I look at you as like what I want to be. You were telling me you've got a secret grown up in the background, but I'm so impressed with all you've done with your books. I've read all of Helen's books, but I'll let you introduce yourself and if you maybe want to say a little bit about what you write, and then
Yeah,
we'll get into
thank
some more
you.
questions.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us along, Laura. Um, so yeah, I'm Helen Aitchison and I write, I guess, a range of genres. I'm still fairly new to writing. I only began writing 5, 6 years ago, whenever I wanted to be a writer. But yeah, here we are. So I write a range of, I guess, commercial fiction. So I've got 3 books with my publisher, a fourth one due next year. And they're of a similar vein. So I tend to write commercial fiction that has a little bit of everything and is influenced by social issues. I do have a kind of standalone within that, which was a dating book, which was based on my terrible dating history, my 30 odd first dates before I met my beloved. Um, and recently I have released a crime police procedural series, so the first book in a series. I've got a psychological thriller coming out. So a bit of everything. And I also write non-fiction with my business. So I like to have me kind of put in every kind of camp really. But yeah, that's what I do on the whole.
We'll get on to talking about your business later because I think it's very, very cool what you're doing. But could you just tell us how you got into writing?
Sure.
You hinted there that you perhaps hadn't always intended to.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I kind of got into writing through getting back into reading. Um, and I hadn't read for like 15 years probably because I was busy with my career. I had a kind of high stress, high profile job. I'd been at university twice. I had a lot going on and I just didn't have time to read. I didn't make time, should I say, to read. And then a colleague of mine who had been in the police for years, he retired from the police. And he used to work in particular with a vice team, so working with people who purchase sex, people who sexually exploited victims of sexual exploitation and sex trafficking, and he would do the kind of policing side of it. So he'd seen all of that. And then he came to work on one of my teams. So I worked for a charity that supported a variety of vulnerable people. And one of the teams was working with women and men who were working in the sex industry, whether it be selling sex, survival sex, escorting, trafficked for the purpose of sex and sexual exploitation. So he came to work with us on the other side of it, sort of working more with the victims. Um, and he was involved with we were involved with a massive operation in the northeast, a sex trafficking ring, organised crime group, and he wrote about that. He wrote about his experience. So it's fiction, but it's kind of narrative non-fiction, and it's based on his experiences in the police. So he wrote this book, and I was like, oh my word, Ian's wrote a book, and I was just buzzing for him. So I read his book, and it just sparked me love again for reading. And from that, I began reading loads. I was kind of, devouring books at any opportunity. And then I read a book by one of my favourite authors, Nick Children, called The Five People You Meet in Heaven. And I just loved the book so much. I was so moved by it. And I thought, I want to write something that makes someone feel how I do now. So I entered a competition with playwriting, a local playwriting competition with a local theatre in Newcastle called Live Theatre. And I got on this course and I was really inexperienced. Everyone else was like super experienced. They were doing creative writing at uni or they'd had plays produced before. And I was like, I've never written anything apart from emails and lots and lots and lots of them at work every single day. Um, but it was brilliant. The course was brilliant. The people were brilliant. And it kind of gives a little bit of confidence. It's like, well, why not? I've got nothing to lose. And I think that the only feeling is never trying. So I started writing poetry, little bits and pieces. And I started to get things published. So I thought I can't be that rubbish. And then I thought I'm going to write a book. So that it was kind of as organic as that. And I was writing as I was still working in a really kind of stressful job. I was writing on evenings and weekends. I didn't tell anyone apart from my partner. Um, and then I finished the novel, which was my debut novel. It was just signed by K. Hill Davis Publishing, and it was just like, there it is. Here's my book. At the end of it, and that it changed my life. The whole thing changed my life in a way that it's impacted my career, and just finding something that brings me joy, but hopefully brings a lot of other people joy. So yeah, so I think my message to anyone would be, you can have a dream all your life, and that's absolutely brilliant. But you can wake up one day and have a dream and still pursue it. And I'm kind of living proof of that. I never wanted to be a writer, but now I can't think of never having that in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of it.
And it's so common, I think. I think a lot of people come to it after having done other things. I
Mhm.
mean, I definitely did. And I think most of the authors I know have had other careers and have
Yeah.
then gone into it. And I don't know whether that's about having more life experience to put
Hmm.
into your books or time. I think when you're younger and you're starting a career or it's family life or whatever, socializing. That
Oh,
could
yes.
you're so busy, aren't you, in your 20s? And I think as you get a bit older, not that we're old, but I still in some I don't know. I think we might be a similar age. I do quite a lot of things now that make me feel young because I do things with quite significantly older people, but I'm aware I'm no longer in my 20s. But I think getting past that stage does free you up a bit, doesn't it? To be more creative and just have a bit more space in your life sometimes.
And I think like sometimes I still feel like I'm a child in my brain, but my body doesn't let us know. I make noises every time I get up from a seat, for example. I ache for 3 days after spinning. But I think with age comes clarity as well. And I think the experiences, I write about my experiences and my career, my personal experiences. And I think as you get older, um, you become less consumed by the restrictions of society and that we're put onto ourselves. So I think there's something freeing,
Yeah.
um, about kind of getting a little bit older as well.
I don't know whether this might be too much of a generalization, but I sometimes think as a woman as well, certainly have found I have had a lot more confidence in myself the older I've got. I was so in my 20s, I was so down on myself with everything. And I don't know, there's something about getting older that you just become a bit more empowered. Maybe it's the same for men as well. I yeah, who knows? But
Yeah, so
I would say that your the Dinner Club, your debut novel, I read that and it's I still remember it. And particularly there was an older character in it. Was it Grace? Is that
Florence.
Florence? Oh, it's close.
This is in the next book, actually, this character called Grace in the next
Oh,
book.
okay. Florence. Yeah, she really stuck with me, and that's a book with so much heart. Was it quite tricky though, writing it whilst still doing your day job and everything else?
Yeah, it was really hard. Excuse me. And I think what happened, Laura, is that I was working in a really high pressure environment, and there's elements of my job I love, but I had projects basically from Berwick all the way down to Middlesbrough on the coast for complex needs, and £9 million portfolio, and 100 staff and thousands of service users. So it was a lot of pressure. And for me, writing became something for me, because every day it was about making sure the services ran effectively, making sure commissioners and partners were working with them effectively in communication with their. It was about safeguarding the people using the service as well as the staff. And it was draining. There would be crisis happening all the time. I had accommodation, so it was 24/7 for some of my
Wow.
services. So it was just constant. And the staff team were brilliant, but it was hard work. It's hard work, that is hard work. And I think writing became a bit of a stress release for me, and it was working for me. But at the same time, I absolutely had the imposter syndrome of, I'm not a writer. My degrees are social work and criminology and sociology, completely different. And writing is completely different to what you learn at school. So it was really hard, but it was something that was therapeutic for me, and something that I felt I could be someone else, within the characters. And then whilst I was writing the book, my grandma died suddenly, and Florence is based on my grandma, so it became a way of me managing grief and dealing with, the massive loss in my life. My grandma just lived around the corner, and I spent a lot of time with her, and I'm really blessed to have had her for 38 years. But you know, it was really hard, so I used that as a coping tool, and I was writing about the character that is based on her, and looking at a little photo, and my grandma's photos making us cry, and then it was very cathartic, but it was very conflicted.
Mm.
Um, Writing that, and then when I got my publishing contract, I felt it was a final gift from my grandma. So it is very special, and I think the Dinner Club will always, it was my first book. It was firstborn. It'll always hold a special place in my heart, and I'm really pleased that other people have felt the characters, and maybe the
Mm.
characters have resonated with them and maybe brought them a bit of comfort, and that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Maybe it's because it was so influenced by your grandmother who you knew so well. There was something so real about that character of Florence. I really felt, and you could feel the emotion reading it. I think that's what I love in a book is if it makes me well up, I'm like, oh, this is a good read. So
Thank
how did you
you.
go about getting it published then? Because you mentioned your publisher. What's that process been like, and how does it feel to be a published author?
Yeah, I think I was lucky, but I think also the book is good enough. So when I finished writing The Dinner Club, I didn't have a clue about publishing, and I didn't know what to do. So basically, the way I started, Laura, I was looking at competitions. Um, I felt like I could have done with some mentoring because I was so new, I didn't know any of the process. So I was interested, excuse me, in having someone to support me through the whole process. So I entered a couple of national competitions, um, and they can be costly, but I thought I'm going to set myself a budget and I'm just going to see. But I didn't get anywhere. I think I entered about four. And then I sent the manuscript to some publishers. I didn't look at agents. I went straight to sending them directly to small publishing houses. And I think I got an offer of two or three. I can't remember now. One was, I think, a Vanity Press. Um, but what I loved about Cahill Davis publishing was um, that Cassandra, the director, said about that the book reminded her of when she used to go to the library, but with her grandma when she was younger. And I just thought, you get it. Like this is you want, a partnership that is more than just a transaction. For me, I wanted someone to believe in me as a person as well as my book and the characters, and have a connection. So that was, I was really, really blessed, really grateful. Um, and I've got my fourth book coming out with Cahill Davis in March, which is brilliant. So it really helped me because I didn't know the process and I was very new to it. And it can be daunting and overwhelming. And as you know, there's many layers of what being an author involves. So yeah, that's how it kind of came to be born. And it came to change my life through being off work for a sabbatical and then kind of moving my career. So yeah, I think I was really lucky, but I've also, I think we should always acknowledge this is that I've worked really hard, and I think as individuals we don't acknowledge that, we can like push it off, but we have worked hard, as do so many other people in different disciplines and industries. But yeah, it wasn't just handed on a plate.
It's like that saying you make your own luck. I think that's really true, isn't it? Like,
Mhm.
yes, it's very fortunate to have got a publishing deal, but you only got it because you'd written a good book and approached people.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just out of thin air. And a lot of work. I think there's so much work goes into writing a book that and then you think you're done, and then oh, the whole publishing business is a whole another stage. So yeah, I think it's important to recognize that work. And it's
Absolutely.
so you've got your fourth book is coming out with them,
Yes.
but you've just had a shift of genres, and I've just read your very great Somebody's Nobody, which is crime or
Yeah.
police procedural, which is one of my favorite genres to read. Um, and I really enjoyed it, but what was so interesting is your background of working in kind of social services and with vulnerable people really came through. So what made you decide to embark on a new genre?
Yeah. So I've always worked in the field of social care, about 20 years in my career, and a lot of that has been with high risk individuals, victims, and working in the police. I've worked in a civilian role in the police, in the what used to be the domestic violence unit of the police as an aid with high risk victims of domestic sexual violence. Um, so I thought, I want to write something a little bit different, the social side of things when I write about kind of recovery, and whether it be around friendship and hope and just acceptance, and really trying to help people feel validated through some of the other books. I love doing that, but I wanted to not be pigeonholed into one specific type of genre. So some of it was a bit of an experiment, and it was really, really hard to write. So
Ah,
I've got a newfound respect for people who write crime police procedural books, because it is not easy and you have to get it right, because there's always someone else saying that's not the way it happens. So yeah, I really wanted to write something like that. And I wanted to do a series. People often say it was, oh, you're doing a follow-up to the dinner club, and are you doing a follow-up to this or whatever. But I think a really important thing is to know when to end something.
mm.
Um, and one of my favourite things ever in the whole world is Afterlife with Ricky Gervais. And I just think it's incredible. The writing, acting is just phenomenal. And the three series ended, and I remember Ricky Gervais saying about how you've got to end sometimes when you still want more. And that's when you know you've got it right, rather than when people are sick. They're like, not again, there's a series 8 or book 28 in the same series, and it's the same thing regurgitated. So I think it's a skill of knowing when to finish. So I thought I'm going to try a series, but it has to be something that I know a little bit about. Obviously, your research, and your brother-in-law's a DS, so he really helped us with some of
That's
his
useful.
reviews. Yeah. Although at one point it was becoming a bit more like a police manual, and I was like, I don't, we're not training detectives. This is just, there's got to be a little bit of fiction in there. So yeah, I wanted to try that, but I thought for the first one, I wanted to combine the stuff I know, which is around the homelessness, and some of it is inspired by my career. I didn't have someone murdering people who were supporting, but there was a lot of crime and a lot of criminals and victims, and that's what happens in the fields of homelessness and addiction and mental health, unfortunately. So I wanted to do something where readers would have a little bit of a think about deserving and undeserving victims and perpetrators, because I think that can happen where people are quick to judge. Oh, well, they're a heroin addict, so, they deserve it, or they're an alcoholic, or they've done this, they've done that. But actually, they are someone's daughter, someone's son, and the whole term of somebody's nobody came about because people will say, well, they're a nobody, but there's somebody's nobody, there's someone's mother and someone's son. And I think we're very quick to judge about deserving and undeserving, and the whole moral aspect of things. So I just wanted people to think a bit deeper. And that's why in the first in the series in particular, there's a lot of backstory about the characters and based around the Homeless Day Centre, and about characters in recovery from drug misuse and alcohol. Um, and I have got friends in recovery from substance misuse, so I consulted them to make sure it felt it wasn't tokenistic, because I'm not in recovery from substance misuse, although I've worked in the field. So yeah, I wanted to do that and then start a series. So the next book in that series hasn't got social issues in, but it follows on the detectives. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing it. It was super, super hard. It took us the longest out of any of my books put together. The rest of them put together, it
Oh
took us
wow.
yeah, but I was really proud of it in the end. And it isn't for everyone, not no books are for everyone. That's absolutely fine. But for the right readers, they'll get it, and they'll get the messages that I want,
Mm.
that I want to come across in that book. So
It did raise some really interesting questions I found about what who is deserving
mhm.
of justice and who, does because obviously somebody thinks they have the right to dish out their own form of justice. And I found it so interesting thinking about victims, and you can have a victim who's also perpetrating. And yeah, I found it raised a really lot of interesting issues, but I'm very pleased there'll be another one coming. So when's the next one have you planned a release date for the
Oh,
next one?
well, very loosely, because I'm trying to tie things in with me book with Gear Publishing, which is out in March. Um, so I'm releasing a psychological thriller, a standalone, which could end up being a series as well, in the summer, and then I'm hoping to release the second in the series of McCardle and Erickson in December. That's called Number One Fan. So I'm hoping to release that then. I'm still writing it, so we'll see. It's a little bit easier than Somebody's Nobody, but yeah, hopefully December. Then I'm hoping maybe every kind of 8 months I'll be
Mm.
releasing one in the series. It won't go on and on and on. I know when the kind of natural end is, but I have got a number of ideas, so hopefully it'll continue for a bit.
I was going to ask, has it got easier with the second book? Like, is it once you're in the new genre, do you sort of bed into that, or is it still just really challenging?
I think it's easier because I know some of the police procedures now. So I know, thanks to my brother-in-law, who would arrest who, who would give commands to who. And I really wanted that to be accurate
Mm.
because I've read books myself where, I've been that idiot and said, well, that doesn't happen. So, I wanted it to feel authentic and to feel genuine, not just the topics that were covered, but the processes.
Mm.
So now I feel I'm a little bit more knowledgeable on that. It's kind of easier in a way, and because I'm not the next book isn't as complex. So Somebody's Nobody has multiple point of views. There has a time hop. I've kind of put everything in there and made it
Yeah.
as difficult as possible. This one's a lot more simple with regards to the story, and we'll come straight in, and there's a dead body straight away.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so we're kind of straight into the crimes rather than the build up, which I had with Somebody's Nobody in the backstory. So yeah,
Mm.
it feels a little bit easier. But saying that, I'm still on the first draft, so there'll be countless redrafting. So we'll see.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that one. I really
Yeah.
liked the two detectives. I think that's always my favorite thing in crime fiction. It's the detectives and their relationships, and it's so yeah, it'd be nice to be able to continue with them.
Yeah, but I became Erickson when I was writing the book. I'm always a middle-aged man when I'm writing books, really bizarre. And I just became Erickson. Um, so yeah, he's a really important. C.S. Erickson's a really important character. So
Did you have that? I think that I haven't even looked at my questions, but I think my question was, do you have a favorite character you've written? So would it be him or is there someone else?
oh, do you know that's a really difficult question because a lot of my characters are based on people.
Oh,
And a real, so obviously Florence, is my grandma from the dinner club. And in Somebody's Nobody, there's two cameos from real people. So there's a tiny scene where one of the characters who manages the day centre, the homeless day centre, Stuart, is in hospital after an overdose, and there's a guy called Craig who comes in from the charity and talks about his own recovery. And he was real, and he died. He was a guy who was a friend who worked in my team, and his story's true.
oh,
So for someone like Craig, he's really important to me. He's a tiny side character. And then within the same book, there's a conversation that Erickson has, in McCardle have when they're taking a suspect in the car, and Erickson, the detective, is reflecting back on a case that he had where a domestic abuse case, and that's a true story from someone I
oh.
supported. I used to go and visit in prison. So that little snippet's really important to it as well. So it's not always a character, I guess it's a situation as well, maybe that's being written that's real to me or someone else. In the third book, The 31 Days of May, Trish was my late mother-in-law and is exactly like the character, to the point of where a tattoo is. So it's
Wow.
hard to pick one. Unfortunately, I'm going to be greedy there. And yeah, I've got a handful of very special characters.
I think
But
that's allowed, especially if they're
good.
real.
But, I mean, Erickson isn't real, but I still, I guess he's an amalgamation of people I know, and yeah, it's hard. It's hard because they're all become, there's some books that you write and you just don't really like the characters and they're not meant to be liked, that you're meant to love to hate them. But then there's some, I think, that you write and you read or you watch on TV that you just connect with. for
Yeah.
random reasons or for really, really personal reasons. So yeah,
Mm.
it's hard to pick one.
It's nice to have a group. And actually you do, you grow so close to them, don't you? Because you're spending all your time with these fictional people. And actually they do I will go to places where I've written about and and it's been a really weird thing. I've been to places and I think I've had a memory and it's not. It's something the fictional characters did in that place
Wow.
because
Oh,
they
look.
feel that real when you've spent all that time with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. You see them, I'm a very visual writer, so when I write, I know exactly what all my characters look like, which is great for me, but it's also a negative because if I don't describe them properly to the reader, they're not going to get that imagery, or I might say something and say, "Oh, I didn't realize that they had, red hair or whatever," because I've never mentioned it. Because in my head, as soon as I start writing them, they're there. I can see them
Mm,
very vividly. But they do become part of your world.
mm.
It's weird, but you become part of their world and they become part of yours.
It's almost maybe a form of madness, but it's quite a nice one.
Yeah. All the characters in the room with us right now.
I think that's why, like, I often feel a bit antisocial because I'll have spent so long on my own, but it doesn't feel like I've been on my own because I've been having all these conversations with.
What you've got a football team in your house, of characters and all seeking attention.
Oh, well, can we move on to talking about your company? Because it's so interesting what you're doing. So it's Write on the Tyne,
Yeah,
write as in write,
yeah.
handwrite. But do you want to tell us a bit about it and the kind of work you do? Because some of your projects, well, all projects, just seem so like impactful on the people you've been working with. And it's so broad what you're offering.
Yeah, yeah. So when I released my first book, The Dinner Club, I took a sabbatical from work. Um, and it's the first time I've ever had any time off work in my career. So it was really weird, but it was kind of lovely at the same time. I thought I can't release a book and do what I was doing every day at work. So I took some time off, about 3 months, and then I just thought I can't go back. Um, just because I think once you're away from something, you reflect, and like I said earlier, there was some things I loved about my job, like absolutely loved. But it was really hard. Um, so I thought, what can I do that combines me love? I've always worked with marginalised people. That's what I'm good at. Um, it's what I know, it's what I'm comfortable with. I'd be really, really crap at a load of careers, but working in social care is always what I've loved. And now I love writing.
Mhm.
So how can I combine me two loves? So what can I set up a business? And I kind of had the attitude of if it doesn't work out, that's okay. I'll do something else, but I think I want to give myself a chance. So I've got a brilliant friend who I used to work with in Refuge, 25 years ago, and she's a business advisor. So I went to see her, Tony, and I basically registered as a community interest company, which means that I have directors, but it's not for profit. And everything that I do kind of goes back into the community after my obviously my wage. So basically, it means I can apply for charitable grants, for some charitable grants, but I can charge people privately as well.
Right.
So it gave me the opportunity to have the best of both worlds, really. Have some security through possible grants, but then also be advertised and work with people on a one-to-one or with companies. And what Write On The Tyne is about, it's actually 3 years old in 2 days' time,
Oh,
is is about making creative writing and expression inclusive, accessible, and therapeutic. So I do a range of different activities. I do teaching. Um, so I teach a range of creative writing courses, and they're always free. So I'll get either a grant or I'll get funded by a local council. Um, I do community projects that are open to everyone. So, for example, I did a heritage fund project, which was about the borough I'm from, and I live in North Tyneside, and it was intergenerational experiences and memories of the borough. So I had from age 8 to 93. and
Wow.
people's experiences, and they submitted pieces, poems, photos, stories, and I collated all them, and then they went on tour before being archived at the Heritage Fund. Um, and then I do targeted work with specific groups of people, either through commissions or through grants. So I've done a book with local veterans, and we covered 70 years of conflict. Um, I did a book with women in Walker and Baker, which is part of Newcastle. That's got a high level of unemployment and single parent um, and poverty. And that was about women's roles over the years and how women's roles have changed and the sense of community in those areas. Um, and then I did a book with a brilliant charity called Recovery Connections that work with people in substance misuse recovery. And that was all the experiences of people accessing the services and their experience of addiction and of abstinence. Um, so that's the type of thing I do. So at the moment, I'm doing a book with Teesside, at South Teesside, and that is through a government initiative called Changing Futures, which is around people being able to get to services in a streamlined way and services working better together to reduce people bouncing between wrong services and trying to get the right support. So people with complex needs. So we're doing a celebration book for them, and I'm working in HMP Low Newton with the inmates there doing some therapeutic writing. And what we're doing at the end of that is we're creating a book of the women's and the men's pieces that will be published. So it's all around kind of raising awareness, supporting, and being to give people a voice who have felt unheard or marginalised. And I think that's really the core of the business is about validating people's experiences and just giving people a little bit of hope, but also raising awareness of certain topics. So the stuff's always educational. They're going to libraries, universities. It's educational for people learning who maybe want to work in the field, or for someone who's a carer, a parent, or a friend of someone who's maybe struggling with a certain issue. But it's also for me about raising that awareness of those issues and reducing stigma,
Mm.
and helping people to feel part of something and understood. So yeah, I love it, and the beauty of it is that I can kind of do what I want to do and what I feel, not only benefits the people in the groups, but benefits me as a
Mm.
person. And then I do little bits and pieces, like I'm helping a 92-year-old blind lady to write her memoir.
Wow.
She was a trailblazer in climate control, which is fantastic. So I do little bits and pieces alongside that, but the bulk of it is around projects that are either commissioned or I've got a charitable grant to do something in particular with targeted groups.
That sounds amazing. And I think I saw you've got a publishing wing now of the company, so you can
Uh,
publish the books that people come up with.
I have, yes. So actually, that's a good reminder. See, I do too many things probably. So I've published all of the non-fiction through the business, and I've also signed two local authors to Write on the Tyne publisher. So it's a small branch of it. I'm not like open to submissions and things like that. It's more people I've worked with um, who are marginalised. So I've been to publish a memoir to a local guy called Jeff Stevenson, and it's called Duty, about his time in the Marines and in the time in the fire service. And then I published a brilliant author, Bridget Griffin, her fictional book. She's based in Northumberland, um, When the Small Creatures Wake, and that's a fantastic book that's loosely inspired by her own upbringing in Macclesfield in the 80s.
Mm.
And then I published Somebody's Nobody through the publishing house as well. So it meant that everything was kind of set up with all the absolutely super complex process that you have to do. And I find understanding the Homeless Reduction Act easier than the process of publishing, but I do have an adult to help. He does all of that, to be fair. It's really, really complex. The whole, like the publishing through Gardeners, the distributor and clears the printer, and it's just really,
Mm.
I mean, you know the process, but it's very, very confusing.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot of money. It does cost a lot of money. So I can see why publishing houses can be picky about who they publish because the
Mhm.
cost is a lot, the process is a lot, it's very time consuming. So yeah, I've published probably about 10 through the business, to be
Wow.
fair.
Wow, it's quite
Um,
a lot.
yeah, I did a children's book. I'm not really child friendly. Sounds weird, but I haven't got kids. I'm not really, I haven't got loads of children around us, but I wrote a children's book about my cat. I
Oh,
He rescued cat for New Begins, which is the charity that rescued him and raised awareness of the doctor and shop. So I did that through the business. So it's been beneficial to have that publishing arm of
mm,
the business. But I don't think I might sign one or two authors in the future, but it's not something I would do a lot of because the investment is it's massive. And I
it's
can't get
huge.
grants for that. That's not something that I would get a grant for. That has to come out of kind of capital
And
for the
it's an
book.
upfront investment with no guarantees of a return, isn't it? That's what, however a book is published, whether it's self-published or through a small press or a large press, you have to put in that initial investment, which does make it inaccessible to a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's getting harder.
Mm,
I really do think it's getting harder, and the cost of printing is massive. And I think
yeah.
authors got an email recently from Amazon saying the royalties were being reduced. It's just
I got
it's
that yesterday. I was thinking, oh, great. And the knock on of that is because I've always wanted to keep my books at as a reasonable price for readers as I can. Because you price something at 9.99 and people will assume you're going to get, I don't know, a fiver or something. The reality is, with like a 50% royalty, the amount from a 9.99 book is going to drop to below £1.
yeah,
And you can't, if I mean, I'm lucky that I've been able to build up from, I mean, I didn't have any money to put in at the start, but I've managed to build up. But if you're starting out now and you haven't got a partner who can support you, or you're a single parent, or you don't have some sort of network, it's incredibly hard. I think that
yeah,
makes like the kind of thing you're doing so important because there'll be so many people that can't access publishing, even amazing writers who that final hurdle of actually being able to publish their work, is not available to them.
it's becoming like one of the things for me when I set up the business is that the arts are really elitist. I've worked with people throughout my career who've never been to theatre in their life.
Mm.
They've never been to an art gallery, they've never been into a library. It's very elitist, and I think the gap becomes more obvious. So for me, I wanted to make it that, people say, well, I can't do that. You absolutely can. Or no one's interested in what I want to see. I had that with the veterans when I wrote their book. They were like, well, no one wants to hear my story, Pet. And I was like, they absolutely do. Like, your story's incredible. But we don't give ourselves that credit. And, it's like writing isn't for me because I'm from this background or I didn't go to school. And, I see that a lot in the prison where the women just don't have any faith in themselves, and their stories are really important. Everyone's story is important, but their stories of overcoming adversity and surviving are like they need to be told. It's part of history that this needs to be told. Your story is
Mm.
really, really important. It's part of your recovery as well. And I think what happens is people are priced out, or they're taught that it's not for them, they're not good enough. So I think helping people to be able to tell a story is really, really important. But the price of things is obscene. Like I was in the prison on Monday, and I get what we get a lot is all like, I bet you get loads of money. And I was like, I'll give you an example. So I sold 3 copies of Somebody's Nobody to a bookshop in America. Brilliant. Got the returns through. I said, guess how much I got? I said, it's 9.99 each. So they were like, 15. I think you're 15 quid. I was like, lower. And it kept going lower. I got 60 pence lower for 3 books. Do you know what I mean? I was like, so I can't even get you can't even get a Twix for 60 pence now, can you? Like a pound or something. Um, so, it's very difficult. And I think the key is we do it for love, not money.
Yeah.
But also, it is incredibly unfair. And it really does then marginalise people further. Like you just said, if you haven't got a partner, you haven't got financial backing, it feels impossible. So, I think there's loads of support out there across the country, but I think things like writing classes are really important in that they're free and accessible, or opportunities like being part of something and submitting somewhere to get your work published. But it's really, really difficult for people.
And so much, I think, in education now, certainly like my sons are 17 and 14, and they've come through a system that has almost like beaten any creativity out. It's all been about rules and following very strict rules, and they both hated English, came out thinking it's the most boring thing. And they went to a very creative school, they're not a very independent, not in the sense of a fee paying school, but independent of not being part of an academy, really invested in music and things. And even there, they came out thinking English isn't for us because it's all just grammar and rules. And that, I think, that they're kids who've had all the advantages of a stable home and a nice village school, So for them to come out feeling like that, if you're someone who has none of those advantages and goes to a school that doesn't even meet your basic needs, you're not going to
Absolutely.
come out thinking you can write, are you?
Yeah. And then society just continues to kind of, take away from dreams. So it is really important to hear people's stories, I think, of how
Mm.
people have got into writing, but also just to raise that awareness because it's getting harder, unfortunately.
And books are sometimes in my low moments, I think, oh, well, is there even any point writing books? It's a frivolous thing. And I think actually it's really not like you get so much education, even from reading fiction and like the kind of stories you're talking about, people's real experience. It broadens your mind. And I think we're in a very divided world at the minute. And reading about people who are very different to yourself, have very different opinions, is huge. And then there's like you can be incredibly lonely and you sit and read a book and you have like we're talking about writing, you've got your friends around you, there's so many benefits from
But
reading and there's so many stories out there to be told and people just need the ability to be able to tell them, don't they?
absolutely, and I think like it sounds dramatic, but I think books can save people's lives. There's
Mm.
some of the Recovery Voices book that we did with Recovery Connections. There was a woman in who read the story and went and sought help because
Wow.
she read a story and thought, actually, it's my time now. So there's something about that can be kind of the motivator for someone to seek help,
Mm.
or someone to understand someone else's suffering. So it can change lives, it can save lives, and we're all relate to different things. I think the more that we have diverse topics and real life stories or stories that are informed by experience, that's what it's about. Storytelling is what life is about, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's everything and everywhere. And I think the more kind of diverse voices we hear, the more we learn.
Mm.
Every time I do a book with anyone, every time I do a project, I learn from certain people. So it's never ending, and it gives us that resource to be able to help people.
Mm.
With a stranger at the bus stop having a conversation and knowing something and reading something or sharing something, but also bringing joy to people. I read this book that really made us smile or it made us cry, but it was happy tears and the
Mhm.
character was brilliant and just reminds us of you or you love or whatever. It's a conversation starter and it helps people in so many different ways.
And what's the kind of response been from people you've worked with? I'm guessing some of them probably have never tried writing their story or a story before. Like, have you
Yeah,
seen like a growth in their self-esteem, or have any of them gone on to write more?
absolutely. So I think what's happened 9 times out of 10 is people will say, I can't do this because that's what society tells me. And that whole kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. And there's been groups I've went in and they've been like, I'm not doing this, what are you doing here type of thing. And by the end of it, they're like, please don't go. So it's a brilliant turnaround. And I'll give two examples that come to mind. I was doing a group in Northumberland with women in recovery from substance misuse, and it was an order, so it was a probation order, so they had to be there. So I went in, they were like, some were a bit hostile. I was like, oh, but it was about not trusting. That's absolutely fine. And I went in and I was like, right, I'm here to do this. And like, oh, sighing and rolling the eyes. Someone was like, I'm not doing this. And I was like, right, you don't have to. I says, but just listen. Um, so the session was like 2 hours. And by the end of it, she was like, well, you can't leave. I was like, well, I'm not leaving. I'm coming back. I did 4 sessions, And at the end of the project, there was a woman, and she just was writing loads, and she was like, I'm just loving it. And I was like, that's brilliant. And then a couple of months later, I did an event for International Women's Day at a library in a different borough. And in Northumberland, the transport links, the public transport isn't great. So this woman had left Northumberland and got a taxi on a low income on a benefit, came to the library in Newcastle. She came in, she was like, read this. She was like, well, give us a second, I'm setting up. She gave us a notepad, and then she got up in front of about 60 people and read some of her pieces out.
Oh,
Um, and from then, she's just never stopped writing, which is just amazing. And it's really helped her therapeutically. It's helped her to get a story down, an important story. So she's brilliant. And another woman I worked with in Teesside, who is part of the Recovery Connections with, excuse me, when I went in there, she was like, oh, I wanted a, my story type of thing. I said, well, try, what's stopping you? So she wrote a book, and she published a book. Yeah, I remember. Lisa, she's called. I've got a book on my bookshelf. So it's brilliant that you can kind of it's almost reassuring people that yes, you can.
mm,
Um, you might have been taught all the time at school that you're naughty, or you're not sticking in, or you're not any good at this, because that's what happens, unfortunately. Hopefully not more, now in school now, but in the past, you're naughty, or you're not concentrating, or the education system really didn't flex to fit certain individuals. And then at home, maybe they've had dysfunctional life at home and not told, that they're good, or, took the rubbish at this and they'll never do this and never do that. Relationships, all those things that are important in the formative years and adolescent and young adulthood. And then thinking that you're rubbish, or, going down whatever path, or not being able to manage certain issues and turn to substance or crime, or mental health or physical well-being, whatever it may be. And then actually having a chance is really important for
mm,
people. And I think that's so precious for someone to be told you are good enough. Your
yeah,
piece is brilliant. And I'll read pieces and they genuinely give us goosebumps, and people say, well, I'm crap at this, and it reads me out. I'm like, if it comes from the heart, it's always going to be right. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
always going to be genuine, authentic. If it comes from your heart, it's your truth. And people just need to be taught and reassured that they're good enough. And I think once you do that and people get it, you almost see the light bulb, and then
mm,
people can believe in themselves. And if they never want to write again, that's fine. But as long as it's been validated once,
yeah,
people don't forget that. You remember all the crappy things that happened, but you also remember those nuggets of kindness, don't you? And
yeah,
those nuggets of reassurance. And I think if we can do that for people, that's that's the gift that you can give to someone else, and I think that's super important because we've all needed validation and
mm,
comfort and reassurance at some point in life, and we've all felt that we're not good enough. So, I just think it's really important for people to give that praise and that opportunity, and it works, it's what people need.
yeah.
So yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely when people get that, and it's genuine from me. And I think when they're part of a book, um, the group I've been working with in Teesside, saying, you're going to be in a book, and when I give you a book, I want your autograph, and you can just see that they're dead excited. And then I have like celebrations, so I have launches, and all the people come, and
Oh,
maybe they read out pieces if they wish to. And there's just something really magical about that people never forget, and for me too, I get so much from it. So it's lovely to be in that position. Um, it's a joy for me, really, and
I
it's a
think
privilege.
there's something, it's writing and sharing something you've written is an incredibly vulnerable thing to do. It's terrifying. We know it as authors of books. You put your book out there, and it's especially that first time, or the first, even actually, however many books in, the first reader of that first draft is a terrifying thing to do. And you're opening yourself up to criticism because not everyone's going to like what you've done. So to be someone who's never written anything, has had no validation in any other part of their life potentially, to then put something on paper, share it, and be told this, you are good enough, and this is good. That's huge, isn't it, for people? That's such a powerful thing to give somebody. I think it's absolutely amazing what you're doing. I am aware I've kept you, I told you I'd be about half an hour, and it's so interesting.
I don't know when to stop talking. I'm
No,
terrible.
but it's so interesting. I want to keep talking, but I think I'll move to my quick fire questions. But just so people know, I'll put your, well, obviously your own website and stuff, but I'll also put the Write on the Tyne details under the video when I post it, because I think probably quite a lot of people will want to look more into what you're doing. Are the
Brilliant.
books that you've published and projects you've worked on the website?
Yeah, yeah. So there's things you can download for free, like the Heritage project, but the books, all of the books are on there as well. And my Helen Aitchison writes that mine with me publisher are on there as well. It's like a shop.
Okay,
Um,
brilliant. So people can go look on there and find out more about it. I
yeah,
think honestly, I think it's such an incredible thing that you're doing and the kind of groups you're working with. It's just, it almost makes me a bit emotional hearing about it. So I can only imagine what it must be like to be working in those environments. Yeah.
it's lovely. You know, and like I say, I'm crap at loads of things. Like I know I'd get sacked on day one if I worked in the shop, for example. Do you know what I mean? I just couldn't do it. Um, but I just love, I love working with people who don't feel heard or, just feel that they don't fit into the world because I think, I felt like that. So it's a two-way thing. It's very cathartic for me as well.
Oh, I think it's brilliant. Right. From a very serious thing, let's move on to these not so serious questions. Okay, so the quick fire questions. Do you prefer typing or writing with a pen and paper?
Typing only because my writing is really bad. Although I love lists and I do like the old school, but I'm
Yeah.
left-handed and my writing's just a mess. So definitely typing. And I have my touch type so I can type really quick.
Oh, that's brilliant. Uh, while you're writing, do you like tea, coffee, or something else?
Tea always.
Do you know this is meant to be quick fire. I never do it quick, but I went to my first ever WI meeting last night, and there was someone from Tregothan, I think it's called. Someone grows tea in Cornwall on this massive estate, and he brought the tea plants, and he was telling us how to make a proper cup of tea, and I realized I have never made a proper cup of tea in my life.
No, I wouldn't believe I know.
But today I left it to brew for 3 minutes, and I didn't use boiling water, and I'm like.
Oh wow, it's like a whole science.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I'm told that's a real tangent. Um, when you're reading, do you prefer ebooks, paperbacks, or audio?
Oh, paperback always, always. I do have a Kindle, and I think it's really convenient, but the plastic book is just not for me. I just love the feel and the
Yeah.
senses of the paperback.
Yeah. I don't think you can beat it. What's your favorite place to write?
So I'm lucky enough to have a room dedicated to me writing. And so I'm in here now, although Eric, the cat, normally comes in and takes the seat that I'm on. So yeah, my favourite place is my actual writing room because I feel it's just surrounded by all the things that help me to be creative and it's nice and peaceful until Eric comes in with his stinking mouth.
What's your favorite writing snack?
Oh, I don't really snack as I'm writing, to be honest. I would stop and then have something to eat. Um, but my favourite snack, like at any time, is crisps.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I could take or leave chocolate, but crisps.
Yes. Oh, just love them.
Yeah. What's your favorite genre to read?
I would say, I mean, I do like non-fiction, but I would say on the whole, probably psychological thrillers
Mm.
being my favorite.
Something you can't put down.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good. Um, who's your favorite book character from another book rather than one of your own? This is a really tricky question, I think.
It is. Oh, I think I would say it's from my favorite book. My favorite book is I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes, and I would say Pilgrim is my favorite character.
Oh, brilliant. And that answered the next question as well. So bonus.
Brilliant book. Really long. It's like 800 pages. And it was
Oh
only
my
booked there
gosh.
for 3 years. So I thought, I don't like. books normally that are more than 365 pages.
Yeah,
Um, but I read it and I was like, this is just the best. It's got everything in.
that's
It's
it.
got
I've never read it.
brilliant. It's crime, thriller, espionage, pandemic. There's terrorism. It's just brilliant. It's a brilliant, brilliant book, and he's a brilliant character. Um, he's just he's just brilliant.
Oh,
So please read it.
I'll have to actually read it then, even though
Excellent.
it's 800 pages.
Oh yeah, yeah. A holiday read or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, who would be your ideal fictional dinner party guest?
Oh, well, I'm not pick Pilgrim again. Probably a character from one of my favorite authors. So I love Frederick Backman. Um, there's a book, probably Britt Marie. Britt Marie was here because I think she's a really complex character, um, that's misunderstood.
Ah,
So I like the layers in a character, and I like
yeah.
it where, like for example, on a character, it's open to interpretation about someone, so you make your own decision, and
Mm.
every reader would make a different interpretation of a character. And Britt Marie's like that, where someone would say she's being awkward, or she's a pain in the arse, but actually there's a complexity then of vulnerability,
Ah,
um, and why someone behaves in a certain way. So possibly her, because I like the whole hard shell, soft interior of people.
and good conversation probably as you
Yeah,
uncovered those layers.
breaking it down, a bit of a
Yeah.
counselling session maybe.
Brilliant. Okay, and what is your current read?
Oh, is it long? Is it called Long Bright? Well, I'll just check before I write down all I'm reading.
Oh,
Otherwise, I forget. I've got a little book where I note everything I've read. Otherwise, I'll forget and I'll think, have I read that already? There's so many books. Um, Long Bright River is called by Liz Moore, which is a crime book.
oh,
Um, which is very good. I'm enjoying that at the moment.
mm. Brilliant. Okay, and finally, we have sort of covered this, but where can readers find you if they'd like to know more about your books?
So I've got two websites, the Write On The Tyne one and Helen Aitchison Writes, which you can send the links. I am on social media, so on Facebook, I've got a page of Helen Aitchison Writes. I have got the other socials, but the one I'm most active on is Instagram, um, which is Helen.Aitchison_Writes, which I send through. So yeah, so Instagram and Facebook, I'm on them more than X, for example, but people can reach out to my website as well to connect it to email. So if people want to ask anything, they can get in touch with there as well.
Brilliant. I'll put those links in the description of the video so people can find it easily. But thank you so much for giving up so much of your time. It's been so interesting to hear about the many, many different things you're doing within the under the banner of writing. I think people will find it really interesting. So thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting us. It's been lovely talking to you.
Brilliant. Well, we'll chat again soon.